Hey guys, COUY here, and welcome to the final Disney review on my channel, and the first of 3 fully live-action episodes on COUY Reviews. For this episode, I am going to be tackling one of, if not, my least favorite Disney movie of all time. Well, these Disney reviews have a bad ending, don't they? This movie is so bad that it ruined me, so bad that it gives me bad thoughts once in a while, and so bad that the animated series based on it is the worst animated series I have ever seen. I already admitted this a few times on the internet, but today, I will be giving this abomination of cinema one last damn blow. In 2015, there was a made-for-TV film called Descendants. When Disney announced this thing, I thought it would be their first hand-drawn DCOM with a concept that I was interested in at the time. I avoided it for 4 months because of Jackson Funnelcher's review, but I was unfortunate to watch it online on November 6th for some fan game idea on a wiki, and I even used to like it and its animated series for a bit, until I snapped out of it in spring of 2016. As time progresses, I kept seeing more flaws, and got more boiled by the whole fad that this thing brought into the modern age of television and pop culture. I grew more bitter with every glimpse of the whole franchise. Now that I'm reviewing this disaster, I am going to rip it all to shreds and flush it down the fucking toilet. Yeah, this review's gonna be so nasty that you'll hear me curse. So why is this my least favorite Disney movie, or overall movie? It's not that I don't like any of Disney Channel's musicals. It's not that TV movies are lesser than theatrical or streaming ones. Especially, it's not because of ripping off Ever After High. I'm sure it's different enough from that superior underrated gem. Boy, we about to find out. So strap in, suckers, cause there's different reasons to why this film absolutely sucks the most dick and balls. So the story is that these characters live in Punishment Island, and some prince wants to give the villains a second chance by inviting them to Good Kingdom. The villains want their children to steal a MacGuffin from that kingdom, and hijinks ensue. All of a sudden, the main protagonist is dating the prince, and now she doesn't want to steal that MacGuffin, but instead to stay in Good Kingdom. Simple enough. So what's wrong with the plot? Everything that's in the execution. First off, does anything I told you sound familiar? Yep, this film's ripping off more than just Ever After High. Story-wise, it has uncanny similarities to a shit ton of other movies. That includes the Mean Girls movies, Blue Sky's Robots, 2007's Bratz, Despicable Me, and Disney's own movies like High School Musical and Wreck-It Ralph. The Mean Girls part comes from the villain kids being hybrids between Caddy and the Plastics, and the part where they get challenged to a soccer game. The Robots part comes from those villain kids going to this big city that is Oregon, and Maleficent being a controlling mom and the main antagonist. The Bratz part comes from them breaking the stereotypical norm. The Despicable Me part comes from their dream to steal the MacGuffin, and last but not least, the High School Musical part comes from the generic Romeo and Juliet side plot and the rivalry between heroes and villains, and the Wreck-It Ralph part comes from the villain kid's decision to be good, which was convoluted throughout the sequels and Wicked World. The differences between Descendants and those movies aren't good enough to outweigh the plagiarism. I know that it's not even the focus of this film, but the comedy is typical DCOM humor at its absolute worst. Don't get me started with the modern spin they took on Disney's animated fantasy movies. This is set 25 years after Belle and Adam's marriage, which is the 1700s, because Beauty and the Beast takes place in the Middle Ages. Why are there cars, smartphones, pop music, dumb slang, and whatnot in a movie that takes place in the 1700s? Are they just trying to be like other DCOMs, or are they too scared to respect what made these Disney classics iconic at all? The sheer amount of shit this movie took onto its script and the animated movies represented is something that shouldn't fly. Speaking of villain kids, let's talk about the characters next. That's right, I'm skipping the visuals, cause I could care less about the film's looks. Just because most of them don't plagiarize other characters, that doesn't mean they're even likable enough to get a pass. Whether it's Blue Raven Queen being the source of the garbage humor, Discount Aladdin being a bland pervert, Polk not helping that garbage humor, the prince being flat out stupid, as to friends having no personality whatsoever, as X being your average annoying bully. Whatever this movie did to the classic Disney characters, turning Maleficent herself into a poor excuse for the movie's plot, or the purple elephant in the room, her daughter. Don't get me started with Nao. The way that this bitch is written is something that Disney should really be ashamed of. First off, she and her squad were poorly introduced with a musical number. They didn't show what it's like for them in the Isle of the Lost. Didn't she tell us a bit of the disadvantages of her hometown at the beginning of the movie? I don't really give a shit about reading the prequel books. They should have came before this movie, so we could prepare ourselves for this crappy world building. Secondly, she fails at delivering the cliche of a bad girl becoming good. That's because that's how these villain kids were like in the sequels. They still promoted being bad. How clever. Rolf had a reason to wreck buildings again in Fix-It Felix Jr. after helping Vanellope save Sugar Rush. It's his job. Video games are a business in his universe. He gets paid to do it. Even then, he's still a nice guy on the inside. The villain kids on the other hand just promote awfulness to find material for musical numbers. Lastly, I can't tell who she even is. Is she an S, not an S, not funny, stupid, or a blank slate? I have no idea. Okay, I'll stop with the characters to save running time for this review. Instead, I'll be talking about something that should also get a dishonorable mention. The musical numbers themselves. This is another part of the movie's attempt to be cool and hip for the young kids, either just to be like other DCOMs, or to disrespect the Disney animated classics. Rotten to the Core is basically repetitive lyrics and dubstep as a villain song. There's a god-awful cover of Be Our Guest, if only ruined the word only. Evil like me is too goofy for the kind of character that Maleficent usually is. Did I mention is just a forgettable nuisance, and Set It Off is the laziest ending song that anyone could come up with. These songs have no creativity or passion put into their lyrics, instrumental or flow. They're manufactured to be like those songs on today's hits radio during the movie's release year. That's it. They're not even meant to be timeless Disney songs for generations to come. They're the textbook definition of a product of its time. That's embarrassing. That is why Descendants is my least favorite movie. Plagiaristic, poorly executed story, despicable characters, soulless songs, and a franchise that continued to irk me throughout its, hopefully, 5 years of popularity and activity. Simple as that. My recommendation. Just watch something else. No, I'm not telling you to watch Ever After High instead, or any of the other movies mentioned, but simply to watch something else in general. Also, I should have put Wicked World at the #1 spot at the remake of my top 10 worst cartoons based on a film. You all know, right from the beginning of this review, that I absolutely give this film a 1 out of 10 in the Devil Badge. Enough said. Stay tuned for the next 2 reviews that are the complete opposites of that thing. And they're also teen movies. One that was my favorite movie at one point, and one that's my favorite movie now. This is COUY signing out.